The day my parents' will was red started off cold, but sunny. Light came through the big wooden windows of Nicholas and Associates' law office. I sat quietly in a corner, watching my brother Donald walk around the room in his fancy suit, already acting like he owned everything. And honestly, he probably did. "Miss Laura Benandi," the lawyer said, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Are you ready to begin?" I nodded and held tightly onto the arms of my leather chair. I was 34, and today I would find out what my parents really thought of me. Though deep down I already knew. They had compared me to Donald my whole life, always making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Mr. Nicholas, the lawyer, adjusted his glasses and started reading. "To our son Jason," he said, "for his strong commitment to the family business and for carrying on the Benani name." Then he listed everything Donald was getting. I couldn't believe it. The family house in Pennsylvania. Our summer home in the Erie. Most of the shares in Benanti Industries. A huge investment portfolio worth millions. Donald's smile grew bigger with each item. Then it was my turn. "To our daughter, Laura," Mr. Nicholas paused and flipped through some papers. "We leave the painting titled Autumn Twilight, which is currently hanging in the study at our main home." The room went quiet. Donald didn't even bother hiding his laughter. "A painting?" I asked softly. "That's it? Just a painting?" "It was your mother's favorite," Mr. Nicholas said gently, clearly uncomfortable with how unfair everything looked. Donald came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. He squeezed it just enough to make it hurt. "Don't worry, sis," he said with a smirk. "I'll get you a job in the company. Maybe sorting mail." I pushed his hand off and stood up. The Benandi family fortune, which took 3 generations to build, now fully belonged to my brother. And all I got was a single painting, one my mother had bought years ago from a small gallery. I had always thought the painting was pretty. It showed a forest at sunset, with strange shapes hidden among the trees. But still, it didn't feel like a fair gift. "Is that all?" I asked Mr. Nicholas. He gave me a kind look and nodded. "The painting must be picked up within 8 days, he said. I left the office without saying anything else, ignoring Jason calling out behind me. The drive to my parents' house, now Jason's house, felt strange. The guards at the gate gave me suspicious looks, but let me in after I explained I was there for the painting. Inside, the housekeeper Nancy met me with tears in her eyes. "Oh, Miss Laura," she whispered, giving me a tight hug. "What they did to you wasn't right." I hugged her back, holding back my own tears. Nancy had been more like a mother to me than my actual mom sometimes. She helped me take the painting off the wall in the study and wrapped it gently in a blanket. "Your mother used to stare at this for hours," Nancy said softly, "especially in the last few months. She used to talk about numbers and patterns. We thought she was just confused because of her illness." I looked closely at the painting in the dim light of the study. The shapes hidden in the trees seemed to move and change, forming patterns I had never noticed before. "Numbers?" I asked. Nancy nodded. She gently touched the shapes with her fingers. She used to trace these again and again. Mr. Benandi would get so angry when she did it. That night, back at my small apartment across town, I hung the painting on my living room wall. It really was beautiful, in its own way. The forest was painted with so much detail. Every leaf and branch looked perfect. But the strange shapes didn't fit in with the rest of the scene. They felt on purpose, like they were trying to say something. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, staring at the painting. This was my mother's last gift to me. Was it just a cruel joke to show I wasn't good enough compared to Jason? Or was there something more to it? My phone buzzed, Jason calling again. I ignored it just like I had the last 6 times. He probably wanted to brag or offer me that mailroom job again. Instead, I opened my laptop and started looking up the painting, Autumn Twilight, by someone named Dennis Hope. There were no big shows, no records of it being sold, and barely anything about the artist online. The gallery where my mother bought it had shut down years ago. It was like the painting had come from nowhere. A text popped up from Jason.
"Don't be bitter, sis.
Come work for me. It's what Mom and Dad would have wanted." I always felt like my parents wanted me to be more like Jason. They wanted me to care about money, profits and big business stuff. But I chose something different. I followed my love for art history and restoring old artwork. I knew they were disappointed in me, and now, through their will, they had made their feelings very clear. Still, something about the painting wouldn't let me look away. The shapes in it reminded me of something I learned in my art restoration classes. It was called steganography, a way of hiding messages in plain sight. I got up and took a closer look at the painting. The shapes were painted in slightly different colors, just enough to be hidden unless you were really looking. And they seemed to make some kind of pattern. Suddenly, a knock on the door made me jump. It was past midnight. Who would be here at this hour? I looked through the peephole and saw Jason. His usually neat hair was messy. "Laura," he said, "open up. We need to talk about the painting." I stayed quiet and watched him from behind the door. He never cared about art before, so why was he here now in the middle of the night, asking about the painting he had laughed at earlier? "Laura, please," he said again. His voice now sounded nervous, almost scared. "Mom left instructions about the painting. You need to give it back." Instructions? My heart started beating fast. Maybe I wasn't just imagining things. Maybe those shapes really were hiding something. "Go away, Jason," I said loudly through the door. "The painting is mine. It's all I got, remember?" "You don't understand," he said sharply. "That painting isn't what you think it is. Give it to me now, and I'll pay you $7 million. $7 million? For a painting he called worthless just hours ago? I stepped back from the door, my thoughts spinning. Jason was a lot of things, but he wasn't the kind of person to waste money. If he was offering that much, then the painting had to be worth even more. Then I heard him messing with something, keys. Did he still have my spare key from last year, when I was sick? I panicked. I grabbed the painting off the wall and rushed to my bedroom, locking the door just as I heard the front door open. "Laura?" Jason shouted. "Where are you? Where's the painting?" I held the painting tightly, my hands shaking. In the dim light of my room, the strange shapes on the canvas seemed to glow. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before, a pattern. The shapes weren't random. They formed numbers, hidden so cleverly in the trees that no one would ever see them unless they knew where to look. "Laura." Jason's voice was getting closer. "Think about what you're doing. That painting is worth more than you can imagine." I turned the painting over and looked at the back. The canvas was fixed neatly, like a professional job, but something didn't seem right. There was a small gap in the frame, something that shouldn't be there. Just then, the handle on my bedroom door shook.
"Laura,
"Open this door right now," Jason shouted. With shaking hands, I picked at the gap in the frame. A small piece of paper fell out. It was covered in my mother's neat handwriting. I read the first line, and my breath caught in my throat. "My dearest Laura, if you're reading this, then you found what I always knew you would. You notice things that others don't. You ask questions others are too afraid to ask. Now, my sweet girl, you're about to learn why your father and brother have always feared you." Jason was still banging on the door, but I barely noticed. I was focused on the letter, my hands shaking as I read each line. Every word revealed a shocking truth. The numbers in the painting weren't just random shapes. They were coordinates, bank account numbers, and passwords. Together, they would expose something huge. Something that could destroy Benani Industries completely. And Jason, who was now yelling and pounding outside my door, had no clue that his perfect little world was about to fall apart. I don't know how long I sat on the floor, reading and rereading my mother's letter. My hands shook as I took in every carefully written word. The numbers in the painting, when used with the codes I've included here, the letter said, will lead you to the truth about Benani Industries. Your father and brother built their company by stealing ideas, patents, and designs from brilliant people who trusted them. I was one of those people, Laura. And you were always meant to carry on my real work. A loud crash from the living room snapped me out of it. Jason must have stopped asking nicely. He'd broken in. "I'm calling the police," I shouted, already dialing 911. "Go ahead," Jason yelled back. "I'll tell them you stole company property. That painting belongs to Benani Industries." But now I knew the truth. My mother had been a genius, an inventor in her own right. She had hidden her life's work inside the painting, right under their noses. It wasn't just art. It was a map to a secret place full of proof. The coordinates will take you to my private lab, the letter continued. Everything you need is there. But be careful, Laura. Your father and brother will do anything to keep their secrets hidden. I heard Jason's footsteps moving away, followed by the sound of the front door slamming shut. I took a deep breath and came out of my bedroom. My apartment was a complete mess. Jason had clearly searched every corner trying to find the painting. But I didn't care about the mess. I had more important things to do. First, I took pictures of the painting from every angle, making sure I captured all the geometric shapes. Then, I carefully wrote down the coordinates for my mother's letter. According to her instructions, I had to place the shapes in a certain order to find the full set of access codes. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Nancy, our old housekeeper. Miss Laura, men are at the house taking all your mother's things. They're searching the study. Please be careful. They were trying to destroy the proof. I had to act fast. The coordinates led to a place in the Springfield, about 4 hours away from the city. In her letter, my mother said she bought the property using her maiden name so that my father and Jason wouldn't know about it. The lab is underground, she wrote. The entrance looks like an old storm shelter, but it has advanced security. Use the first set of numbers from the painting to open it. I packed quickly my laptop, the painting wrapped carefully in blankets, some clothes, and the letter. As I walked toward my car, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street with the engine running. Jason wasn't done following me. The drive to the Springfield was tense. The SUV followed me for the first hour, always staying the same distance behind. I took side roads and made turns through quiet areas, trying to lose them. Finally, near the Delaware border, I managed to shake them off. By the time I reached the spot marked by the coordinates, the sun was just starting to rise. At first, the place looked like no one had lived there for years. Just a weedy field, an old farmhouse falling apart, and broken fences. But as I walked around, I noticed something. The shapes in the painting weren't just random designs. They were a map. The trees, rocks, and even the shadows on the ground matched the painting perfectly. The storm cellar was right where the shapes had pointed. It looked rusty and forgotten, like it hadn't been opened in ages. But when I entered the first code into a hidden keypad beside the door, the heavy doors opened smoothly, revealing a staircase that went underground. As I walked down, motion sensor lights turned on one by one. The air grew cooler with each step. I could hear the soft sound of air systems running in the background. At the bottom, another keypad waited for me. This time, I had to use the second set of numbers from the painting. When the lab lights turned on, I froze in amazement. It felt like I had stepped into another world. The walls were bright white, the machines were high-tech, and rows of computers gave off a soft hum. But what caught my attention the most was a wall full of patents and inventions. I moved closer. There were dozens of designs and ideas I recognized from Benani Industries. But there was one big difference. Each one had my mother's signature on it. Oh my God, I whispered, staring in shock. These weren't just similar to the company's products. They were the originals. My mother hadn't just watched from the sidelines. She had been the real genius behind the entire company. Then, a voice behind me made my heart stop. Impressive, isn't it? I spun around and couldn't believe my eyes. My father stood in the doorway, looking just like he had the day he supposedly died. And next to him, Jason, wearing a smug smile. Did you really think your mother was the only one who knew about this place? My father said, stepping into the lab. I'll admit, hiding the map in the painting was smart. We've been searching for this lab for months. I took a step back, holding my mother's letter tight. You're supposed to be dead. He smiled, but his eyes were cold. Sometimes, the best way to stay hidden is to make people think you're gone. Your mother's death was real. But mine? Let's just say it served its purpose. It hit me then, the will reading, the painting, all of it had been a trap. You wanted me to find this place, I said slowly. We needed you to lead us here, Jason replied, moving in front of the only exit. Mom changed all the security settings before she passed. We couldn't get in without the codes. And now, my father added, walking toward me, You're going to help us erase everything. We'll destroy all of your mother's work, and Benanti Industries will stay safe." But they had made one big mistake. While they talked, I had been moving closer to my mother's main computer. Her letter had mentioned something, an emergency action called the Clarity Protocol. It only needed one special number code to turn it on. "Actually," I said, reaching behind me to type in the code, "I don't think I'll be helping you." Suddenly, the lab lights turned red and a robotic voice filled the room. "Clarity Protocol activated. Sending evidence to all major news networks and government agencies. Deletion is not possible." My father's face twisted with anger. "What have you done?" I stared back, my voice calm. "Mom called it her insurance policy." I spoke firmly, feeling braver with every word. "All the proof in this lab, patents, stolen ideas, fake documents, has just been sent to hundreds of safe places. Benanti Industries is about to face some very serious questions." Jason rushed toward me, but it was too late. Loud alarms started going off. The lab's security system activated, and every door locked shut. We were trapped inside, with the truth that would ruin them. "She knew," I said, looking at their shocked faces. "She knew you would try to hide her work, just like you tried to erase her ideas. So, she made sure the truth would come out no matter what." Through the small windows, I saw flashing police lights getting closer. The lab system must have contacted the police. My father and Jason looked at each other, fear in their eyes, as the sirens grew louder. Near the door, the painting still sat wrapped in blankets. Those shapes that seemed useless at first had led me straight to the truth. My mother's last gift wasn't just a painting. It was justice. And as I watched my father and brother slowly realize that their world was falling apart, I smiled. Because this was just the beginning. Now, the real story behind Benanti Industries was going to be told. And this time, no one could hide the truth. The next 4 days felt like a dream. Police interviews, news stories, and a storm of chaos took over everything. From my hotel room, I watched it all unfold on TV. Benanti Industries stock dropped fast. Years of lies were being pulled apart for everyone to see. Benanti Industries CEO found alive, arrested for fraud. Company built on stolen ideas, the truth finally revealed. Mother's revenge, the real mind behind Benanti Tech. The headlines were everywhere. My phone kept ringing, reporters, lawyers, former employees. Everyone wanted to talk to me. But I only cared about one call. It was from Nancy, our old housekeeper. Her voice was full of emotion. "Your mother knew this day would come," she said softly. "That's why she made me promise to give you something after the truth was finally out." An hour later, I sat in Nancy's small living room, holding another letter from my mother. This one wasn't about instructions or secret codes. It was a letter telling her story. "My dearest Laura," it began. "Now that you know the truth about Benanti Industries, it's time you learn the truth about yourself. You were never less than your brother. You were always meant for something greater." As I read the letter, everything in my life started to make more sense. My mother hadn't been just another victim of my father's lies. She had been planning all along, preparing me for this very moment. Those art history classes I had taken, they weren't a waste of time like my father had always said. They had trained me to notice patterns and find hidden messages. My work in restoring old paintings, it had taught me to be patient, to pay attention to every detail, and to bring truth back from pieces. "Every time your father kept you away from the company," she wrote, "every time he chose Jason over you, he was unknowingly helping me. He was shaping you into the person who could one day bring the truth to light. While Jason was learning to hide the lies, you were learning how to uncover them." A knock at the door pulled me out of the letter. A woman in a sharp-looking suit stood there, holding a briefcase. "Miss Benanti," she said politely. "I'm Susan Boyle from the SEC. We need to talk about your mother's patents." The next few hours felt like a whirlwind. I quickly learned just how much my mother had done in secret. She hadn't only saved proof of the stolen work, she had continued creating new inventions, working quietly in her underground lab. The coordinates in the painting hadn't just led to old secrets. They had led to the future. She filed all of these patents under a trust, Susan explained as she spread the documents on Nancy's small coffee table. A trust that names you as the only person in charge. My hands shook as I looked over the papers. Dozens of patents, all legally protected. And now, all of them belonged to me. These weren't just the old ideas my father had stolen. Some of them were new, years ahead of anything being made today. Benanti Industries doesn't just owe you for what they stole, Susan said. They've built their entire company using your mother's inventions. They can't keep operating without them. I stared at her, trying to understand what all of this meant. So, what happens now? I asked quietly. I was starting to understand everything now. It means, Miss Benanti, Susan said, you now control the company that once pushed you aside. While my father and Jason sat in jail, waiting for their trial, I walked into the headquarters of Benanti Industries the next morning, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the new owner. The board of directors, desperate to save the company from falling apart, had no choice but to agree to my terms. Standing in what used to be my father's office, I found another surprise. Behind the large painting on the wall, there was a hidden safe. The code? It was the last set of numbers for my mother's painting. Inside the safe was a personal diary. It listed every invention my father had stolen and every person he had betrayed. But even more important, it named others, people like my mother, who had been cheated out of credit for their work. 1 month later, I stood on a stage at a press conference. The room was full of reporters. Benanti Industries was built on stolen dreams, I said. But today, we begin making things right. I announced the start of a new foundation that would repay every inventor who had been wronged by the old leadership. But I didn't stop there. We're turning this company into what it should have always been, a place where smart, creative people are supported, not used. The painting that started everything now hangs in my new office. It reminds me that the most valuable things can sometimes be hidden in plain sight. The shapes that once hid my mother's secrets now mean something new, the design of a better future, one built on truth, not lies. Jason wrote to me from prison. Sometimes he begged for help, and other times he made threats. I sent him one photo in return. The painting, now hanging where our father's portrait used to be. He would understand exactly what that meant. His world of lies was finished. My father never wrote or said a word, but it didn't matter. The truth he had tried so hard to hide had become the one thing everyone now remembered. The great Gary Benanti was no longer seen as a brilliant businessman. He was remembered as a thief who stole his own wife's work. Late one evening, just as I was getting ready to leave the office, Nancy came in with one final letter from my mother. It had been timed to arrive exactly 1 month after the company's rebirth. My darling Laura, it read, if you're reading this, you've done more than just uncover the truth. You've started to rebuild from the ruins of lies. I never wanted you to inherit a broken empire. I wanted you to have the chance to build something honest, something that matched your heart. I gently touched her handwriting, feeling closer to her than ever before. That painting, once thought to be worthless, had turned out to be the key to everything. More than that, it was my mother's way of showing me I had received something far more valuable than money or power. I had inherited her dream, a dream to make the world better. Now, 3 years later, Benanti Industries no longer exists. We renamed it Aurora Innovations, and it looks nothing like the company it used to be. We're now known not just for new technology, but for running the business with honesty and fairness. Our foundation has helped many inventors take back credit for their stolen work. And our startup program has helped launch many new careers. The painting still hangs in my office. Its strange shapes are now a comforting sight. Sometimes late at night, I feel like they shift just a little, like my mother is still with me, showing me new clues and guiding me toward new truths. But the biggest truth was always right there, hidden in plain sight. Success built on lies will always fall apart. But success built on truth and fairness will last. Jason got out of prison last week. He sent me a message asking to meet, wanting to talk about rebuilding our family. I haven't replied. Some patterns I've learned are better left the way they are. Instead, I focus on what's ahead. Now, the company hosts an annual innovation fair, where young inventors can share their ideas without fear of being cheated. Last year's winner was a young woman whose story reminded me of my mother, smart, overlooked, but strong and full of vision. As I gave her the award, I saw my mother's painting reflected in the glass trophy. The shapes seemed to shine, almost like they were dancing. It reminded me that the most meaningful gifts are not the ones we can hold, they are the ones that change us from the inside. That old painting gave me something priceless. The truth about my past, the power to shape my future, and the chance to protect others like my mother. And I know, without a doubt, that would make her prouder than any fortune ever could.